Hello and welcome to EFD, where today we've got a cautionary tale for the new owners of Newcastle United, with 5 teams that spent big but never achieved their ambitions. Perhaps there's a lesson here for the tune. 5. Anzhi Makhachkala. If you're under 20, chances are you've never heard of Russia's Anzhi Makhachkala, but for a time it was impossible to avoid their name. The Dagestani side, only formed in 1991, was taken over by billionaire Suleyman Kerimov in 2011, who pledged to spend over €200 million on infrastructure alone as the team sought qualification to the Champions League. And so began a wild 3 years, as Anzhi threw the credit card around Europe like a frisbee. Kerimov made good on his spending promise, financing a stadium of almost 30,000 seats and funding the development of a youth academy. But when it came to acquiring players, he was more focused on reputation than on-pitch quality. Keen to find a recognisable face to sell the project, Anzhi bought in a 38-year-old Brazil legend, Roberto Carlos, before dropping over €20 million on Samuel Etoo, who was already 30 and was handed a contract worth an astonishing €400,000 a week, then the highest salary in the game. Gus Hiddink was brought in to manage the side, but arguably Anzhi's biggest problem was overspending on journeymen. Though they did nab the occasional star like Willian, who arrived from Shakhtar in 2013, far too much cash went on washed-up veterans with familiar names like Yuri Zirkov, Christopher Samba and Lassana Diarra, who were on their way down from the top level, and so Anzhi's climb to the summit of Russian football never got higher than 3rd place, finishing 11 points off first in 2013 despite an outlay of over €300 million. Like all rich men, Kerimov got bored when things didn't immediately go his way, and he quickly scaled back the team's budget, prompting a fire sale of their overpriced stars. 26 players left the team in 2013-14, with Alexander Kokorin, Igor Denisov and Alexei Ionov departing after just 2 months with the side, while Willian left for Chelsea after only 11 league appearances. In 2014, 3 years after the beginning of the project, it was over, Anzhi winning just 3 games all season and returning to the 2nd tier of Russian football. Kerimov sold up in 2016, and with mounting debts, the team has spent the last 2 campaigns arguing with the league over their licence to compete. They're now in the 3rd division. 4. Valencia. By now, Valencia should have become a superpower again. Regularly the best side in Spain in the early 2000s, despite competition from Real Madrid's Galacticos, Los Che have pedigree at the highest level. And while we didn't know it when Peter Lim bought the club in 2014, Barcelona's decline over the next half-decade opened the door for Valencia to trouble the top of the table once again. So why didn't it happen? Lim arrived at a club in chaos. The 2007 global financial crash had left work on a new stadium half finished, and over 4 years between 2010 and 2014, the club had lost a succession of world-class talents, with Jordi Alba, Juan Mata, David Villa and David Silva all seeking greener pastures. So fans expected Lim's cash and the help of super agent Jorge Mendes to make them a footballing destination again, a hope which seemed well founded when Nuno Espirito Santo led them to 4th in 2015, winning the Manager of the Month award 3 times along the way. Over Nuno's 2 summers in charge, Valencia spent £170 million, but the club treated expensive stars like jewellery, overpaying for shiny play pieces like Enzo Perez, Ezequiel Garay and Alvaro Negredo on Mendes' advice, and this contact book approach extended to the club hierarchy. Rather than hiring experts to run the team, Lim installed friends with no football experience, and when Nuno left after a poor start to his 2nd season, Lim targeted Gary Neville as the new coach, who he had come to know, according to the New York Times, through a previous investment in Manchester United themed restaurant in Asia. Neville had never managed before and didn't speak Spanish, and before long he was out too, the 2nd in a sequence of 9 permanent managers to have filled the Mestalla dugout in the last 8 years. Under Lim, Valencia have spent over £450 million since 2014, but while they've brought in talents like Rodrigo de Paul and João Cancelo and produced stars like Ferran Torres, the constant chopping and changing has left them with no identity. identity. To make matters worse, COVID deepened their financial hole, and with nearly €500 million in debt, they've had to become a selling club again, resulting in a 13th place finish in 2020-21, their lowest since 1988. A shadow of their former glory when Lim took over, somehow things have become even worse for Valencia. Without change, there might soon be nothing left. 3. Beijing Guoan. Frankly, most Chinese Super League clubs could make our list, but arguably the biggest failure of the CSL bubble was Beijing Guoan. Owned by real estate mega corporation Sinobo Group, the team was rated as the second most valuable team in China back in 2016, and has long aspired to global recognition, having gone through 8 permanent coaches, all of them foreign, since 2010, the latest being former West Brom and West Ham boss Slaven Bilic. The hunger for international talent didn't end in the dugout. Having dabbled in the foreign market with the £15 million double signing of Renato Augusto and Burak Yilmaz in 2015, they spent £100 million over the next 2 years. In 2017, snapping up Cedric Bakambu from Villarreal for £36 million after he scored 48 in 105, and also signing Jonathan Vieira from Las Palmas despite competition from Premier League sides Swansea, Newcastle and Burnley, thanks to a huge salary of £116,000 a week, Vieira acknowledging the move as one destined to take care of his future. Armed with such weaponry and helmed by respected coaches like Bruno Genesio and Roger Schmidt, Guoan seemed primed for domestic success, but it never arrived. Ex-Leverkusen boss Schmidt oversaw a drastic improvement in performance levels, taking the team from 9th in the 16-team division to 2nd, and from a goal difference of 0 to plus 34. But it still wasn't enough to overhaul Fabio Cannavaro's Guangzhou Evergrande, and Schmidt's sole reward for his work was a Chinese FA Cup in 2018, as well as his reported salary of €6 million. Genesio couldn't improve on his predecessor for the first time in 2020, another marker of their disappointing return on investment. And when COVID hit China, the club hierarchy moved quickly to scale back their financial exposure, slashing the transfer budget and even withholding player salaries to stay afloat. To make matters worse, the league itself suffered, as the Chinese government reduced the number of league fixtures from 30 to 22 in 2021, and suspended the season for 3 months to keep players fresh for China's World Cup qualification campaign. Short of matchday revenue, Beijing had no choice but to let Bakambu's contract lapse, and are now embroiled in a legal dispute with FIFA over unpaid wages. In the end, after a decade of spending, it seems like they're worse off than they were when they started. 2. QPR. The only thing worse than spending a fortune to build a relegation side is doing it twice. But that's exactly what Malaysian businessman Tony Fernandes did after he bought 2/3 of Queen's Park Rangers back in 2011 at a cost of £35 million. Like most new owners, Fernandes made grand promises of a bright future for the Hoops, and he had some reason to think he could follow through. After all, QPR had just finished top of the Championship to return to the Prem after a 15-year absence, and had the combined financial might of both Fernandes and Lakshmi Mittal behind them, an Indian steel billionaire then ranked as the 6th richest man in the world, with a fortune of over $30 billion. So QPR went into the market swinging, but with a desperate desire to earn the approval of fans and pundits, they put their faith in the wrong people. Seasoned but conservative coaches like Neil Warnock, Mark Hughes and Harry Redknapp failed to give the side identity or tactical nous, but demanded huge transfer expenditure, and Fernandes gave in, bringing in around 25 players between 2011 and 2013 and shelling out a then incredible £70 million in that period, only around £10 million less than Barcelona over the same stretch. Now, to make matters worse, they handed out huge salaries too, and when they were relegated in 2013, they failed to learn their lesson. Once again targeting household names to propel them back to the big leagues, like Charlie Austin and Benoit Asuakoto, QPR's wage bill rocketed to an astonishing £75 million, or 195% of the club's revenue, building up massive debt that only promotion could solve. And thankfully, they were able to avoid insolvency when Redknapp masterminded a return to the Prem in 2014. Once again, Fernandes seemed to base his business on football knowledge from the past, this time acquiring players like Sandro, Stephen Kulka and Leroy Fer but Redknapp couldn't craft them into a coherent team, ending the campaign in 20th place and with a staggering 73 league goals conceded, 10 more than any other side. Within 18 months, all Fernandez's punchy signings were gone, and to add insult to injury, QPR were hit with a transfer ban and a £42 million fine for breaking the Football League's financial fair play rules. By the time Mark Warburton joined in 2019, the Hoops had been through 8 permanent managers in 8 years, and Fernandez himself was gone, replaced by Mattel's son-in-law Amit Bhatia. 1. Monaco. Appropriately for a place known for the mega rich, Monaco were once among the continent's biggest spenders, and for a time it worked. As recently as 2012, the Principality side was stuck in the second division of French football, but after Russian billionaire Dmitry Rybolovlev picked up the team for €1 when they were bottom of Ligue 2, a swift ascent began, with Claudio Ranieri shepherding the club to the top flight in 2013, when the scale of the Russian billionaire's ambition became apparent. Monaco spent £145 million in a single summer, bringing in Radamel Falcao, James Rodriguez and João Moutinho, as well as high-earning veterans like Ricardo Carvalho and Eric Abidal, and in the space of a single campaign, they were major players in the first tier, finishing second. However, trying to play PSG at their own game but with less money wasn't a winning strategy. Monaco had returned to the highest level, but they were still 9 points off the capital club's league-winning tally, while huge wages weren't enough to prevent James leaving when Real Madrid came calling. Monaco's sparse population meant that the stadium was always half empty, with an average crowd of just 8,000 in 2013-14, second lowest in France, while the commercial deals their marquee signings were expected to attract never materialised. And to make matters still worse, Rybolovlev was hit with a €50 million bill from Ligue 1 to make up for Monaco's low taxes, before losing half his fortune to his wife Elena in a messy divorce, eventually cutting her a cheque for over €3 billion. But ironically, the move from buying club to selling one was what ultimately brought success to Stade Louis II. Forced to focus on youth, coach Leonardo Jardim built an exciting side for a pittance, with Fabinho, Bakayoko, Bernardo Silva and Tamar Lamar joining up for a total cost of £30 million, while the academy produced Kylian and Mbappe to ease the burden on Falcao. So though the estimated value of their squad slumped from £210 million in the first season after promotion to £171 million in 2016-17, just over a third of the $500 million PSG's roster was worth, they romped to their first title in 17 years, going on to earn a massive €550 million in sales over the next 3 campaigns. They haven't troubled PSG since, but Monaco are a lesson to every new money mogul trying to change the status quo. Being rich is no match for being smart. So those were our 5 teams that failed to buy success, but what do you guys think? Have we missed out any others? Please let me know in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this video, then click on screen right now, and as always guys, don't forget to like and subscribe.